I used to be a full-time Linux user. I ran, I think it was Ubuntu 9.x, and it was still using GNOME 2.x, and I loved it. It worked for me. And I know that it wouldn't work for everybody else, but I felt, this is great. I've used Windows for a long time, and I'm seeing this, and this is working extremely well for me. Why couldn't everyone else use this? And Tygra, being the person he is, and being the more level-headed person that he is about things, said that, it may not be right for everybody. It may not have everything that everyone needs. And looking back, I realized, yeah, he's right. Wine was doing really well then. I was able to do some light gaming in Ubuntu with I was doing Guild Wars 2. I was able to do some some light gaming. That worked. And I had a separate machine for playing games. It was a Windows Vista laptop that a friend had given me. Oh, Vista. Ugh. Then later I got a Windows 7 machine, and I had a System 76 laptop with Ubuntu on it, and I tried to like Unity, but I just couldn't get into it. I didn't really like Unity, so I distro hopped a little bit, and then settled on Ubuntu Mate for a long time. I really liked that. And then on my gaming rig, I moved from Windows 7 to Windows 10 after, and never went to Windows 8. If I didn't like Unity, I certainly wasn't going to like Windows 8, because it was awful. And I've been on Windows 10 for a long time, and then I stopped using my Linux desktop for things and just stuck with my Windows machine for the longest time. Now I'm back to two computers. I've got a Windows 10 machine that this game is running on, and the machine that I'm capturing all this with is running Manjaro, which is a distro based on Arch. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the claims that the year of this being the year of the Linux desktop, and how things have changed over the years since that's been said. Now, back when I was using Ubuntu, there were people who were claiming that, and Ubuntu worked well for me. It worked really well for me. But it may not have worked best for everyone else. There might have been people who had specific needs, and maybe for them, Linux might not have met those needs. Maybe they needed certain software that just wouldn't work on Linux for one reason or another. Maybe the devs had just a stick up their ass over it, or maybe Wine just didn't play nice with it, or the devs. And this has been the case sometimes. The devs would write their software in a way that it just wouldn't work well with Wine. There have been cases of that. But it wouldn't always work well for people. But there were those who still kept saying, "Oh, this is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. This is going to be the year of the Linux desktop." They kept saying it. And people kept laughing at them.
Hey.
And so it never came. Year after year, you would see articles. You would hear people saying it on social media. And it never came. Linux got good. Ubuntu had a lot of popularity, and there were some other distros that started popping up. Linux Mint gained popularity as being a very user-friendly Linux distribution, and people really liked that one, and stuff like that. But still, it just wasn't quite ready yet. Didn't have what people were really needing, really wanting. Now, a lot has changed between then and now. A significant amount has changed. One of the things that's really changed is Windows. Now, we've gone through a couple of revisions of Windows since then. Back then, I was using Windows 7 on a desktop, and then Windows 8 came out. I skipped that. I didn't want to touch it. Tygra's aunt had it, and it was awful. Whenever we tried to do support for her, it was pretty bad. And then Windows 10 came out. I built a new gaming rig and put Windows 10 on it. I stopped using my Linux laptop. I retired that and went Windows full time, but I'd always missed using Linux that entire time. So years passed, Windows 11 came out. Windows 10 was supposed to be the last version of Windows, but nope, they decided to do a Windows 11. Lo and behold, Microsoft decided to go full Gestapo with this operating system, locking it down, and their updates kept breaking things. You couldn't go a month without seeing articles about some Windows 11 update breaking something. Most recent ones were where they were causing SSDs to break. The White Knights, Microsoft's White Knights would say, oh, it's because of the controllers on the SSDs that they broke. But, those SSDs were working fine before this update came out. They were working just perfectly fine until those came out. And it was working fine not only on Windows, they were working fine on Linux too. And then they're suddenly not going to work on Windows 11? Excuse me. Why? And this whole thing of not being able to use a mouse and keyboard in the recovery environment. And then the revelation came out, 30% of Microsoft's code is being written by AI. Now, there are people who really don't like AI, who hate AI. Well, for one thing, to set the record straight on that, the genie's out of the bottle, AI's here to stay, get used to it. But Microsoft is using AI wrong. You see, my friend Tygra, he is building his own Linux distribution. I'm going to be moving my machine, my gaming rig, to Cashy OS, which is a Arch based Linux distro that is tuned for gaming, for really good high performance gaming, and it's very user friendly. He wants to build something that is customized for him. So he's using Linux from scratch. He's building his own Linux distribution, by hand. That's not something that everybody can do. This is even more low level than installing Arch. Playing Arch by itself. And he's no newcomer when it comes to programming. He's a 20-year veteran of programming software. He used to be a full-time, assembler programmer, IBM assembler programmer. And he was really good at it. He learned C, and he taught himself C++. He taught himself C#. And so now he's using ChatGPT not as a crutch. He's not having it write the code for him. He is using it as a assistance tool. He's asking it questions, getting snippets of code from it, getting suggestions, and then he's using that to write his own code. He isn't making AI write the code for him. And this is where Microsoft is making a big mistake. They're using AI as a crutch in place of people who have programming skills. They are making a very big mistake by relying too heavily on AI to do their programming work. And that's why their updates are coming out broken the way they are. And these latest ones have made people really angry. And there's also them pushing the Copilot AI down everyone's throats is what's really pissing people off. And so you have people saying, that this is the year of the Linux desktop again. You have people making that claim. And there are people, again, saying, oh, it's a meme. They keep saying it. It's never going to happen. It's never going to get there. Blah, blah, blah. Hi. Things are not the same as they were back then. Back when I was using Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate, yes, they were correct. It wasn't fully ready for everybody. Some people could use it and they got really good use out of it, but it wasn't ready for everyone. It wasn't ready for prime time. In some ways, Linux even today still has some growing to do, despite how far things have come. But a lot has changed between then and now. And it's not just the whole thing with, Copilot and the bad updates for Windows 11 making everybody mad. It's everything else that's happened since then. Valve released the Steam machines. The Steam machines were their first attempt to really push Linux to consumers. Now, that didn't do so well. Those failed. But Valve learned from that failure. And they went back to the drawing board and they rebuilt SteamOS. And when they brought it back on a handheld that fundamentally changed gaming. They had a Linux distribution that could run games really well. And hardware that was really good. I mean, it's not the most powerful hardware in the world. It's not the most powerful computing hardware in the world. But you were able to play games reasonably well on it. You could play Doom Eternal. You could play Cyberpunk 2077. When people were getting Final Fantasy 14 to run on it.
What's happening with you?
A lot of other games, and people were discovering all the different kinds of games and software that they could get to run on this thing using Proton, which is Valve's fork of Wine. They were discovering what they could really do with this thing. And while it doesn't have the most powerful hardware in the world, it's kind of a little slow and outdated now after it's been out for a few years. Still, it's decent. It's great. And the improvements that Valve has brought to Linux has come to other distros via installing Steam, and also there's community updated versions of Proton as well. Not only is there Proton, but there is a tool called Lutris. And what Lutris is, it's sort of like GOG Galaxy. It will work with Steam, it'll work with the Epic Store and GOG and all that. It'll connect with those and it's sort of a launcher for your games. But it also has scripts built in, so that way you can install games and it will configure them for you and get them working. It will set up custom versions of Proton that work best for those games. It will configure things properly for it, so those games will work the best on your hardware. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not a, fix all for everything. But if you had a hard time getting a game to run, if you use Lutris, there's a chance that you could make it run because someone has created a script that will help configure it so that it can run. And what it will even do is, if there is let's say you wanted to play Morrowind, well, there's a native Linux version of the engine that Morrowind ran on. It would replace the Windows version with the native Linux version, and it would run great. It would do things like that for you. So a lot of that has changed since those days, back when I was running Ubuntu. And so when people say, hey, it's going to be the year of the Linux desktop, they're not blowing it out of their ass. They're serious. And they are, well, there are people who are not going to like it, but they're correct. We are finally getting here. There are some things that Linux still needs to do in order to get better. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Are there some games that will not run on Linux? Yes, there are some games that won't run because the developers have a stick up their ass about Linux and they don't want it to run on their machine. So they use an anti-cheat that will not work on Linux because it needs to be kernel level. And there are all sorts of issues with that. Kernel level anti-cheats open your computer up to a lot of vulnerabilities. It's a serious security threat. You should not run games that have those kinds of anti-cheats. It's really not a good idea. So things have significantly changed. And this whole thing with what's happening with Windows 11 and with them shoving their Copilot AI down everyone's throat has made a lot of people angry. And for the first time in a very long time, actually first time ever, I have seen people openly talking about trying Linux on social media. There are Windows white knights out there that are still screeching, oh, you can do this and that in order to disable this and that in the registry and run these scripts and use this cracked version that will disable all of that stuff. Yeah, that'll work for a while until Microsoft breaks it again with an update, or they take it down. They take that version down for copyright reasons. Eventually, unless you want Microsoft to be spying on you and all of your stuff, you want their AI trolling all over your files and listening to what you're saying, you're going to have to switch to something else. You're going to switch back to Windows 7, which is not getting any updates and is vulnerable to security issues, and is not even really being supported by a lot of stuff anymore. I think Valve dropped Windows 7 support a long time ago. So, you know, you're going to have to bite the bullet and try Linux.
Hi.
And I've been seeing some serious discussion. And the one thing that prompted me to do this video, is people like Gamers Nexus are now making the jump to Linux. He had a video where he was talking to Wendell from Level 1 Techs, who is sort of the Linux guru. And they were talking about using Linux, and he was suggesting Bazite for new users and Cashy OS for people who are a bit more knowledgeable about Linux. And Bazite is sort of Bazite's the closest thing you can get to SteamOS on a generic desktop. Of course, you can try installing, you know, the Steam Deck version of SteamOS onto your computer as long as you have an AMD processor and an AMD graphics card. It will probably work. It may not always work. That it's been tuned specifically for the Steam Deck, so it may not work out of the box for you, and it will be difficult to configure because it's designed specifically for one piece of hardware. But you can do it. And then there's something like Cashy OS, which is designed for just a wide range of machines. You can switch the kernel. You can switch the scheduler. The scheduler is what determines what tasks are being done by which processor core. Windows 11 supposedly has a good scheduler. It's supposed to have a good one, but based on what people have been saying, it's not really that great. But Cashy OS has one that makes it really super fast. But I am getting a bit off topic here. As I said, I have been seeing people talking about switching to Linux, and I've seen some people even say that they've already switched, more so than I have ever seen before. And as I said also, Gamers Nexus, you know, one of the bigger gaming YouTubers, is going to become a full-time Linux user now. He's switching over everything. His ability to do gaming benchmarks and every benchmarks with hardware, he's switching that all over to Linux. And he's not alone. I have seen a lot of other channels making videos about switching to Linux over Windows 11. I have never seen this before. In all the years that I've used Linux, all the years that have gone by since, you know, I switched back to Windows to use Windows 10 and wanting to go back to Linux, I have never seen what's happening now. I'm at a loss for words to really just explain what I'm feeling right now with this. Microsoft has a problem on their hands. They have a really big problem on their hands. Because the more people use Linux, the more people find out, hey, the stuff that people have been saying about it, saying, oh, it's only for developers. You have to be a developer to know how to use it. It's too complicated. It's too complex for normal people. When they start finding out, they get into a distro and they start finding out that's bullshit. They start finding out that they're being lied to by these people deliberately because they're shilling for Microsoft, because they're doing it because their favorite game will only work on Windows because of some kind of anti-cheat. The COD and Battlefield fanboys who were the biggest culprit of this, of doing that. Microsoft's got a big problem, because the more people see the truth, the more people that start using Linux and start discovering what they can do with it. Because Linux represents what computers used to be. Back in the day, I used to use MS-DOS, Windows 3.1. I was a Commodore 64 kid. Apple II. Computers used to be fun. Computers used to be interesting. They used to be... You used to be able to do interesting stuff with it. You used to be able to get in under the hood and really tinker. And over time, Microsoft has taken features away that let you do that. And they have, and I wholeheartly believe this, Microsoft has deliberately dumbed down their user base. Because they are desperate to get people into their walled garden and desperate to get people to be dependent upon their software or their ecosystem. And so they're dumbing people down. They're dumbing their users down. If you use Linux, you learn something useful. You learn skills. The bash script is powerful. How many of you have opened up PowerShell? Unless you're a admin, you probably would never need to. Or if you're doing something specific and you have to look up something, to look up some kind of command to do something. But how many of you have ever opened up PowerShell on Windows 10? Unless you are a system admin, you really don't ever need to use it. But there are all sorts of things that you could do with the bash shell that are really interesting or useful on Linux. And the software that's available out there for Linux is also, really interesting. Not all open source software is bad. There's just a lot of open source software that's really good. GIMP has become really powerful. Krita has become a really powerful alternative to Photoshop. And then there are native Linux versions of a lot of software that people use, like Discord, OBS. PowerShell is also on Linux. Microsoft's own Edge browser is on Linux. Microsoft Visual Studio Code. A lot of tools that people use, a lot of tools that enterprise companies use, have Linux versions. I think even there are even certain things of Office that are native Linux now. And then there is Wine, Proton, and Lutris that you can use to get your games working. There's still the problem with the kernel level anti-cheats, but the games that use that only there's only a few games that use that. And there will be some diehards that will stick with Windows because they don't want to give up those games. Mostly COD and Battlefield. But there's plenty of great games that use stuff like Easy Anti-Cheat and whatever that work great on Windows. And there are games with multiplayer games where they won't ban you if you're a Linux user. You can play Final Fantasy XIV on Linux. People do it all the time on a Steam Deck. So things have significantly changed. So when they say it is the year of the Linux desktop, don't dismiss it, because it is different now. Microsoft has a problem, and if they don't stop what they're doing, they don't stop screwing up Windows 11, if they don't stop pushing their draconian policies because they want to make everybody use their AI and force everybody to use their cloud storage and all this, they're going to push more and more people off of Windows 11 onto Linux. And the more people that start using Linux and seeing how good it is now, how good it is today, and seeing how easy it is to get their stuff working, that's going to spread by word of mouth over social media like wildfire. And at some point, you're going to get the 100th monkey effect. And then you're suddenly going to see the market share of Linux skyrocket. It's going to happen. I guarantee you it's going to happen. And once it does, Microsoft won't be able to stop it. And you will see the end of Windows. Or maybe not the end of Windows, but you'll certainly see the end of its dominance. Because I have never seen the conditions that exist today. Windows is not in a very strong place, and I don't even think Windows 12 will save them. They would have to significantly turn things around in order to stop what's coming. And I really doubt that Microsoft can or even is willing to. So, we are on the cusp. We're finally there. The year of the Linux desktop is closer now than it has ever been. And I think it's actually going to happen. It is actually going to happen. We are seeing the beginnings of it right now. I've been Mike TheZorch. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I'll see you next time.